Welcome back to Games Revealed. I'm James and also Brink, and we are one community. Today, we're going to be talking about something super exciting, and I wanted to give it a few days for it to just digest in my system and to understand all the sweet stuff that's out there in the YouTube verse, all the content creators that digested what is essentially the biggest announcement since the Steam Deck from Valve. That is the Steam Machine, the Steam Controller, the Steam Frame. We finally counted the three. At least Valve counted the three, maybe in a mocking way, but we'll talk about that a little later. So you have to watch the whole thing, and I'll mention at the end why I think they mocked us. Before we get into it, make sure to like, subscribe, bash that bell with your crowbar, and let me know in the comments what you think about all this stuff. So they did it. Valve did it. They did the biggest announcement in, I think, gaming this year. They announced not only a new Steam Machine V2, not only a Steam controller V2, but we got the Valve Index V2. Well, okay, they changed the name on this one, but you can kind of think of it as like a Valve Index V2 kind of thing, except for it is completely different. The Steam Frame. So we're going to go through and I'll talk about the Steam Machine, then we'll talk about the Steam Frame, and then we'll talk about the Steam Controller. And I'm going to give my initial thoughts, some of the really interesting aspects to each one of these things that I've digested through hours of video watching. And then I will be doing deep dives into each one of these over the next week. So watch out for videos. Once again, that's why I say like, subscribe, follow, do all that stuff. So let's do this. Let's go in and see what this whole Steam Machine is all about. It is a cubed shaped device similar to the GameCube. Some might call it the Gabe Cube. And it is kind of looks like a washing machine front also. And there's already memes of people making AI images of the front panel being replaced with the washing machine, like washing Microsoft, taking their lunch with this device. Essentially, if it comes at a cheaper price than the Xbox, not the Xbox Ally, but the Xbox Series X or S, they could be eating their lunch. So at the end of the day, like it is really shocking that they went with such a small device. I wouldn't say it's the most powerful device. I will say this right now. I think if you have a powerful PC, you'd get this something, maybe hook up to your TV and stream it from your PC to your TV, or get it maybe for the family. There's a lot of reasons to get one of these. And I think that's what makes it so cool. Even for me, who has a PC that's definitely going to be a much more powerful than this, is what am I able to do with it outside of that? Can my games be streamed from my Well, they can be because it's Steam, and you can set up other things like Moonlight and all that. And this is a PC also, and it's Steam OS, and pretty much anything you can do on the Steam Deck, you can do with this Steam Machine. Plus, it's stationary, but plus a little bit more because it is going to be 6 times more powerful than the Steam Deck, according to the peep set at Valve headquarters. It is going to be able to play, they claim 4K, 60 frames per second, most games, which is kind of a marketing jargon term at this point, because does it really? With FSR and upscaling, of course it does, but it seems a little misplaced when you say it in such a 4K 60, and then you gotta add on with frame generation with help, because really this box is going to be peak probably 1440 or maybe even 1080 depending what type of game it is. But because of upscaling a bunch of other technologies, it's going to look great. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great console replacement for me, at least. I'll still use my PS5, but this will probably be the thing I frame around all my gaming ventures of the family room. So I have 2 kids, a loving Susie wife, and we could all sit down and start to now play games that I have like emulators for. I have games that can be up to 4 player. I have a lot of things, and we can just kind of have it all on this device, and I can transfer a lot of the stuff from my Steam Deck and just kind of have it there. That being said, it's super small. It's going to be smaller than a banana is wide, depending on what type of bananas, but all bananas are good bananas. And then we also, the interesting part is the IO. Like, it's going to have a 1 gigabyte Ethernet. It's going to have a display port, and it's going to have an HDMI. Even though they say display port 1.4 and HDMI 2.0, going to have a little extra features, at least on the HDMI. And then it's going to have a USB-C and 4 USB-A ports, which in another video, I'll go through like how I think that's kind of stupid, especially for future-proofing this device. But yeah, it's got I/O. I wouldn't say for days, but it's definitely got a lot more options than the Steam Deck. It's also got a custom CPU GPU that is going to be essentially, from my understanding, RDNA 3. So not quite the newest of the new. It's going to be using a little bit older tech, but so did the Steam Deck. Nothing wrong with that. And it's honestly because of Steam OS and the synergy between Steam OS and the Steam Deck, it's lived a very long life. It's also going to come with a 512 gigabyte version or a 2 terabyte version, and it's expandable with a micro SD slot. Now, I haven't gotten in too far to see if it's like a newer standard where it's going to have a lot more read and write speeds, but my assumption is going to be similar to the Steam Deck, which is going to be fine for a lot of games, but if a game requires like SSD, it's probably not going to be fast enough, and so you'll have some weird loading glitches in some games. Of course, it's going to have Wi-Fi. It's a little bit older standard at this point, not much, but a little bit older, and Bluetooth. So it's got all the good stuff that you'd expect in a Steam device. I will say, if they didn't have a replaceable faceplate, it would look very unappealing in some ways, which at least it's not the old school gray of what we would expect old devices back in the 90s to look like. So at least it's not that. And the faceplates that people are coming up with are pretty unique. I'm pretty excited. In fact, I will say, bare minimum, I buy this device to modify and to play with. So I might even get 2 devices, maybe one to play with at my desk right here to have fun with, and maybe another device for my family, and just set it up so it's going to be our gaming box for playing, all sorts of different 4-player co-op games that are more enjoyed by kids. So I am curious what you guys would plan to use this for. Let me know in the comments. Once again, I really want to know what you guys are thinking lately on this, because there's a lot of discussion on all this, and there's a lot to be done on this. I think there's a lot of potential for this too, by the way. I don't know if this is going to be a replacement for a desktop, but it is upgradable in the sense of the SSD and the RAM will be upgradable. So in like the Steam Deck where you'd have to solder it on, with this you can it's a SODOM, so you'd be able to swap the RAM out. Speaking of RAM, it has 16 gigabytes of RAM. Like I said, it should be upgradable. It's probably going to be laptop based RAM from my understanding. And also, last but not least, it has this LED strip in front of it that looks sick. You're going to be able to completely customize this, both from a software standpoint and also from a user standpoint. From my understanding, it's going to be scriptable. I don't know up to what point and how scriptable it will be, but we're going to be able to script this out and do different designs, do different color schemes, flash it. Like they show a great example where they download a game and it shows the download progress, and then it when it finishes, it does like a color cycle. And I gotta admit, I really like that. I like subtle feedback to the user, aka player. As someone that builds software for a living, anytime that you can just be a little bit more subtle to the user but still be very helpful, I think is a huge win. And so it might seem like a small little design, a small little piece to the whole puzzle, but I think will be really nice, especially if you set it right in front of you to where you can watch it while you do other things. It will be nice to kind of have that, because I can't tell you how many times I have like started up Steam or even PS5 and like, oh, there's an update. Well, I have to wait for it. And then I'll be on my phone and I'll have to maybe browse through my computer. It just would be nice to have more instant feedback. And maybe maybe I'm influenced by the TikTok generation here, but more feedback's nice. Now, the Steam Frame. This is one that I think we're going to be getting a lot more news about than the Steam Machine. The Steam Machine is going to be like the Steam Deck, but just as a stationary device that supports maybe better multiplayer capabilities, but it's not going to be much different than the Steam Deck. The Steam Frame is a huge evolution from the Valve Index, as in it's inward out tracking instead of, or is it outward in? Probably outward in tracking. Instead of having the lighthouses, it has the cameras that track the outside of the room that you're going to be in. So it's going to be, and I've heard like the lighthouses are usually the best. That's what people have said. That's like the standard if you want the best tracking lighthouses. But I've heard really good things from like Linus Tech Tips and stuff that um that this is going to be very, very accurate and very like even if you put your hand behind your back to get, to grab something from a quiver like an arrow, what else would be in a quiver, but it's going to be very precise. So, and that's what like the number one thing I want in a VR headset is to make sure that like I don't have any ghosting where it fails to detect and has to like keep up or catch up to my actions too. So it sounds like it's going to be really good at that. It has a built-in essentially computer or mobile device that if you want to, because it's ARM based, it built into it. So it's going to be, you're going to be able to play a bunch of different games, especially ARM-based games that are on Steam with this. And they're probably going to this method of using ARM because Meta has dominated the market, and they understand that like more and more games are in the VR space are ARM compatible or ARM required, as opposed to the Valve Index where it really only supported x86. Types of games, meaning like older games and older like stuff that's on Windows, because you'd have to play it from Windows. This is going to be like Steam OS is going to be 100% ARM compatible now, which is really, really kind of cool, especially if you have like want to hack some Mac minis and stuff like that. I'm curious about it. So one of the things I was a little concerned about with this device was the games. I don't necessarily want to play all my games on the device itself. It sounds like it's going to be a little less powerful than the Steam Deck itself. And so, like Half-Life Alyx, I really appreciate that game and the details in it. I just don't know if they'd be able to get that on the device itself. Who knows? They probably will try, and they'll. I mean, if they release it, then they've succeeded. They're not going to put out a game with minimal effort. So this is where the dongle comes in. If I want to play Half-Life Alyx when I pick this up, they have a wireless dongle or adapter that is going to be 6 gigahertz, and it's going to have two different buses from my understanding. It's going to have one for video and audio, and then another one for the Wi-Fi and internet, and potentially some other connections. So it'll be interesting to see how well this is going to work. From my understanding from the content creators that have already reported on this, it works flawlessly. But in real world, inside of a house full of other connections, it'll be interesting to see if there's any true interference with the 6 gigahertz range. So yeah. With that, the controllers are going to be quite unique. They're going to be more like the Meta ones, but the thumbsticks and everything about it is going to be very much more improved. Thumbsticks are going to be magnetic style. Their battery is not rechargeable built in. You could probably use rechargeable batteries, but I don't think there's any port to charge them from the device. So you have to pull them out and charge them, which I think that's going to probably be the most annoying part for me with this is not being able to just get done, stick them on a dock. But we'll see. I haven't seen any ports in it, but yeah. It's also got like the D-pad. It's got all the normal stuff that you would expect on like, let's say a Steam Deck, but without the trackpads, which I'm completely fine. What I'm would not be fine with is if they left out the capacitive touch that was on the previous controllers for the Valve Index, where you can do gestures. Like, let's say you don't like someone, you can do a certain gesture. Well, you can kind of do a gesture in it. Uh, and so with this, you're going to be able to track the fingers. And so you can pick stuff up by squeezing the controller itself, just like if you've played Half-Life Alyx. Another cool tracker piece to this, speaking of like capacitive, we have eye tracking. So if you want to roll your eyes at someone or, and probably more like a multiplayer VR kind of situation, because, unless, well, that would be kind of a cool aspect if they started adding gesture recognition into games where you could roll your eyes at someone like the guard in Half-Life Alyx and they'd get all pissed and start shooting you. With that, there is a battery on the back of it, and there is also going to be built-in speakers. We'll see how good the speakers are. They don't go over your head. It's a little different. They're probably from the device shooting towards your ears, so you'll probably pick it up pretty well. But people around you are also probably going to be able to hear it, more so than like the Valve Index. It also has an expansion port that might be for maybe an external camera, and I think that's one thing that people are a little upset with, is that there's no like camera and maybe it's color based camera that's for AR based games and stuff. So this is definitely a VR based. We'll see from like an AR standpoint what they're going to think in the future for this. But yeah, it's going to have the pancake lenses. It's going to be like, which is what all the common VRs nowadays have. Besides, I believe the PlayStation VR, the PSVR 2 is a OLED, where all these other ones are LCD. And so I think this is going to be the best, though. I think you can't really say, well, everything needs to be OLED, even though I've heard great things about OLED on even VR. What I really want is I really want to get rid of as much of the pixelatedness that can come from having monitors so close to your eyes, having the screen so close to your eyes. And so the more they can get rid of like the more of the screen door effect, the better. And this is supposed to do a really good job of not letting in a lot of light, so that can also ruin the VR experience. The more you can be immersed in VR, the better. And this is definitely looking like a step up. As far as the device itself, it has a built-in computer. So it's got that Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 architecture in it with the ARM64, which is going to drive up that price quite a bit. It's going to have 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is going to be honestly pretty good. It's unified, so it's going to share that with the VRAM, with the GPU portion of the APU, which similar to the Steam Deck. And then it's going to have a 256 gigabyte version and a 1 terabyte version. And they'll be interested to see how much more the 1 terabyte costs. It's going to have a 21 watt battery in it, which that's half of what the Steam Deck's original release was. So that will be interesting to see how well this will, the screens are smaller, but they're going to be higher res. So it'll be interesting to see how much power draw this has. Rumors are this is going to be like, if you're playing a game that's intensive on the device, it's going to be 1 hour. If you're playing a game that's streamed to the device, it's going to be 3 to 4 hours, which I don't mind that. 1 hour seems a little low, but I mean, it is what it is. I like the idea of being able to stream from my Steam machine to this device, Half-Life Alyx, and being able to play it for 3 to 4 hours. Because I'll be honest, you don't want to play a game like a VR game much longer than that. You want to take a break. So there's a lot more. We'll do a deeper dive later into all this stuff. And let's get into the Steam controller. The Steam controller is coming at us. It's the one I'm the least excited for, but it's the one that also I think the community is the most excited for. It's going to have a very Steam Deck-esque look to it, and potentially even feel. It has the joysticks more inside, then it has the trackpads right below it. Even though the trackpads are kind of angled, I still don't see it being very comfortable. Maybe it's going to be useful for like typing and doing quick actions, but beyond that, I don't know if I'd use those. I also don't really like the way the controller looks with them, but at the same time, until I have it in my hands and start using it and start seeing some applications for this, I'm not going to completely judge this. It's just, it looks good, but I also like my PS5 controller, and we'll see if it replaces that. So as far as the biggest feature for me is that it has this puck that both improves the connectivity, but also acts as a charger. So when you're like on your PC right here, I plug this in, I just grab it, play it for a little bit, and when I'm done, I just drop it over the puck. It's magnetic. It will pop up and start charging the device, which I think is really smart. And I would like to see more devices do something like this. Even on the consoles, like do something to where it's magnetic and I don't have to plug it in every time I want to charge my controllers. The last little thing that I want to say about the controller is, well, okay, before we get to the last thing, like it's going to have the same joysticks as the new Steam Frame controllers, which magnetic joysticks. It's going to have much better rumble functionality. They say high definition rumble than the Steam Deck. It's going to have the gyro enabled ability that the Steam Deck has. So it's got all that stuff. It's got the capacitive thumbsticks, from my understanding, too. But the one thing the Steam Deck doesn't have that this will have for sure, bar the puck and all that, but the whole device is all together. You don't really need a charging device for the Steam Deck's controllers. It's the capacitive touch on it. So if you want to reorient yourself, maybe doing the gyro or doing whatever you're going to be using the controller for, you can take your hands off the sides a little bit and then put them back down. And I'm wondering if how capacitive it will be, like if the capacitive touch will also allow you to do more with it, or if it's just like single purpose for each hand. It will be interesting to see if it's more like the controllers in the Steam frame. At the end of the day, we'll see. We have to wait until we find out how much this is going to cost. Speaking of cost, Steam Machine. It is none of us know how much it's going to cost, but we're going to speculate. I'm seeing that the cost of the Steam Machine for the hardware is going to be around $400 to $450. Take into account how much like a mass-produced device will fail. Usually 2 to 3, 4%, depends. Like if you get past, I think 3 or 4, it's like not considered a success. But you can usually expect a certain amount of devices to fail. That's why I always bring this up when I'm doing pricing. So if, let's say, the device costs just out the door $450, and I doubt Valve wants to make much of a profit on this. This is going to be more of a, not loss leader, but like you get this out the door and make all your money up in games. I see this being about $600. I think that's the sweet spot with tariffs, with all the unknown that's going on. I'd want this to be $500, but I really think with everything else, it's going to be about $600. I think the most we'll see this at is $800, but yeah. Steam frame, I think it's going to be $800 for the base model for the 256, and it's going to be about $1,000 for that 1 terabyte version. So it will be interesting to see where this all goes with those two devices and how much it will cost. Now, I'm going a little higher on the Steam frame. It would be nice if it was a little lower, but considering the ARM chip that's in it and everything else that's in it, and not having the lighthouses does help with the price. But once again, there's a PC in it now, so it's gonna cost more. So, I mean, it would be realistically, it'd make sense if it was $1,000. And then finally, with all this, is the Steam controller, and I think just to be in the competitive realm, like $70 makes sense. I would love to see it be 60, but with tariffs and everything, I just have a feeling that they're going to charge just a little bit more. And because it has a little bit more tech in it than the normal like Xbox controller, but maybe more on the realm of like a PS5 controller of how much tech, because this has some interesting tech in it too, as so does the Steam controller. Yeah, $70 makes sense. Oh yeah. I think, kind of going back to the beginning, I think that this is kind of a slap in the face for gamers, because they keep on asking for Gabe Newell for Half-Life 3. And he mentioned, I believe in an interview, or one of the people there said, every time you ask, I'm just going to push it off by another year. Obviously joking, but they could be releasing 3 new pieces of hardware first, because they are also working on like Half-Life 3. I think they're working on Portal 3. I think they're working on a couple of different titles. And instead of giving us what we want for like a third title, they're like, we're going to be 3 devices, which we're still happy with. But I think they also might be, there might be some rumors of Half-Life 3 coming out soon too, but they had to do this first before the Half-Life 3. And maybe that's why we don't have prices yet. They had to do this before they could release any information on a Half-Life 3. So that's my little speculation and stupid thoughts, I guess, on this. So until next time, peace out. Later.